I've been like watching and I've had so many questions. I've been like, oh my God, there's so much I wanted to ask you while
I'm getting double teamed now.
I don't normally come on. Hey?
I'm getting double teamed now.
No, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything.
No. I'm not going to kind of. Do you know what? There's so much I wanted to ask actually that I've actually forgotten most of it because like it was whilst you guys were talking. But just on this topic of talking about like miracles and things that are happening out of the blue, this is just a random thing that popped into my head when you were saying that though. But why doesn't God like intervene in other ways, like right now, like people starving, people dying all around the world in Palestine and, you know, in Syria, you know, if he can just kind of do things and have like a horse with wings or have Moses kind of split the sea and do all these kind of amazing things at that time, why isn't he doing anything now?
Well, he didn't do a lot of things before either.
Okay.
I mean, like even during the time of those miracles, he was allowing people to kill other people and things like this. I mean, what you brought up basically is the problem of evil.
So what's the purpose? Okay, it's the problem of evil. Fine. So that's the whole nother. But what's the, okay?
Well, that's the whole discussion even you just brought up. You know,
that's a whole nother thing.
Even prior to, even during the time that he was doing these miracles and things like this, he was still allowing other people to die and to starve. I mean, it wasn't like he was not doing anything different.
No, but that's not my point though. My point is that if he can intervene and he can kind of help people. If God is so loving and so caring, more than we are, is what we're supposed to believe. And I don't think I could watch anything that's kind of happening in Syria and not intervene. If that's something that I could do, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, I understand. From a human perspective, that makes sense. But imagine that you could watch all this, you know what's going on, and you have a lot more knowledge of the events, and then at the end of it all, you know, you can redeem you can just rectify it instantly. Whenever you feel like it, like would you feel the same sentiment? I mean, like right now, the reason you feel that way is because you can't do anything about it.
Oh, I don't even understand. Do you understand that point?
Yeah, you can't do anything about it. That's why you feel that way. But you're talking about a God.
I would feel more so if I could do something about it. I'd be like, I could actually do something, but I'm not.
So if I had a purpose for evil for existing, right? And by the way, I want to ask you a question after this as well.
Okay.
So I have a purpose for evil existing, okay? And I see all these horrible things happening around me. And I know at the end of the day that all of this is going to be rectified because I've decided upon it. You know, all the people who have suffered or died, they're going to get justice. Regardless if it's now or later, I can do it whenever I want, okay? And I will do it, all right? So how would I feel? Okay, so if I don't intervene at this moment, what difference is that going to make?
Okay, so it's because you've decided. So the justice system afterwards is either you're going to burn for eternity, and that's justice. Is that justice to you?
For some people, it is. Yes.
But is it for you?
Is it for you?
Oh yeah, it is for me. But I want to ask you a question.
You hesitated though because you didn't answer that question straight away. You said for some people it is. So obviously,
if I hesitated or not, it's still an answer. The point is that so I want to ask you a question before we get to the subject of hell because I find that a fascinating discussion. But, okay, so you see this child starving, you see this woman being raped, you see this person being murdered, and it's over. That's it. There is no justice for them ever. They just die in the way that they are. It's an internal tragedy for the rest of humanity, for the existence of all existence. It has no purpose whatsoever. There is no God saying he's going to deal with it later. That person suffers and dies in that way without anything. How does that in comparison to what you are opposing?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Is you want to believe. Otherwise, it's like a coping strategy almost.
Well, if it's a coping, okay, fine, that's fine. But I'm just asking you, you're trying to oppose God.
That's my point of view.
The point of God, you're looking at the problem of evil and saying, okay, well, God, why is he not doing anything? It's like, well, he will. But your viewpoint, at least I'm assuming that you're not a believer.
No, yeah, that's correct assumption.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that.
No, it's fine.
Is that there is nothing that will happen. That person that tragedy remains.
Well,
always.
I'm agnostic to what will happen. What I do know is that I don't believe that anyone will be punished for eternity or that justice system. Like that, if there is a God, I just think he's so much better than the idea of what he is in Abrahamic religions. Or, I mean, I know more about Abrahamic than anything else. So But it's just there's so many petty things as well that you will basically go to hell for. I mean, do you believe that only Muslims are going to be in heaven? If you're Muslim, you'll go to heaven. If you're not, you'll go to hell.
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
So like a girl in like a village in India that's Hindu, which is shirk, which is worse than murder and rape, is going to burn for eternity because that's all she knew and that's what she was brought up doing, and that's what she truly believed.
So you're telling me she's ignorant, first off. You're telling me she doesn't have any knowledge.
Okay, she knows it. No, I see Muslims love to do that as well. So she knows about it. It's like, oh, she didn't know. It's not her fault.
I don't have to do anything. I'm just telling you what.
No, I've heard that before. Okay, so she knows about Islam. Let's say her next door neighbor's a Muslim. Then she's supposed to be punished for eternity.
Okay, so she learns about Islam and she rejects it.
Well, I mean, I don't see it as a rejection, but she fully believes in Hinduism, and that fulfills her.
Okay, well that's her business, and then when she gets to Judgment Day, she meets Allah, and Allah will basically ask her, what she did, why she believed that, and if she doesn't submit, then of course.
Yeah. I just don't see how that makes, like, in your mind, do you ever think about like people like just burning in hellfire? Like it's just, and like the description of it in the Quran is so intense. Like your skin will come off and then your skin will come back just to be burned again. And it's not even for like, it's eternity.
Yeah,
like
for eternity.
Allah is supposed to love you like 1,000,000 times more than your mother. Okay, and I can't see any mother doing that to her child. That just doesn't make sense to me. Like I don't think that anyone could be that vicious and to be like, I need you to worship me. It's a very human kind of way of just kind of worship me, tell me I'm amazing, tell me how great I am, keep saying it, say it 5 times a day.
Not worship. Well, Allah says in the Quran himself he doesn't need anybody's worship. And
yet that's the way to go to heaven.
Well, yeah, because it's for us. It's based on that's what a purpose for our existence is, to reach a certain point.
Okay.
So for example, let me just respond quickly here.
Okay.
Regarding the whole hell thing. Hell is not eternal because it's just eternal per se. I mean, Quranic scripture is also very direct, very specific about this. That so I gotta find the exact passage. I'm not a hafiz, excuse me. Mm-hmm. So I will just paraphrase it for you, and then after that you can debate if you want.
Okay, go ahead.
So basically it states that the people in the hellfire will ask God to go back for a day, just so they can get enough, good deeds so they can get into heaven. Okay? And so they're asking God if they can go back. And then he responds to them and says, I know that when you go back that you're not going to do that. Okay? And that you're not going to be what, sorry?
That you're going to be good or whatever, follow this.
Oh, okay.
I know you're just saying that because you want to get out. I know when you go back, and he actually says that he calls them liars, and he says that you're just going to come back and do the same thing. So I'm keeping you here for that reason, because I know you're not going to do it. And so the whole thing about, they're going there because they did one thing. It's like, no, well, they're going there because they continuously refuse. They're in there because they don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. So it's not like it's because of one thing they've done and then eternally they're punished. It's because they can keep doing it.
They can do it in heaven.
Do what in heaven?
I don't understand. What they keep sinning after they've died.
No, they keep refusing to submit.
So they go to from what I've learned. I went to a Muslim school my whole life as well. What I've learned is that there are some people who aren't that bad who will spend a little bit of time. So there's kind of different stages. So you'll have a year or 2 years or 10 years or 20 years or eternity as the final, those are the evil people.
Those are the really bad people who don't submit. They're completely consumed by their arrogance. And
okay.
There are individuals who will be punished for a certain amount of time until they submit.
Right. So, but they were created by God. Ultimately, we are the people we are because of our genetics, because of our environment. You can have totally different people that, if I had twins and I put them in a different environment, they could turn out totally different. It's like, that doesn't make sense to me either for that to be judged.
Oh, now we're dealing with determinism and stuff like this. Okay.
Yeah, there's too many things here.
I understand I understand the position you're coming from. Let me just put it down. Okay, so I know what you're saying. All right. And then there's differences of determinants like compatibilist and things like this. Okay, so I don't know which determinist you are, And I don't want to really get into that discussion per se, but I will say that I agree with you that to some extent, where we are born and our genetics and things do play a role in how we are as people. And I will tell you personally, and I believe this truly, not just because it's my own opinion, but I believe that Allah is merciful enough that He will take those things into account.
Well, that's what I used to believe. To be honest with you, when I was a Muslim, I was very devout, and I used to just think, well, God is merciful, and He knows better, and I'll leave it to Him, and all these things that generally Muslims say. And it's funny because I bring these questions up to Muslims all the time, and they always have that answer of ultimately, it's like, I don't really know how to answer it. It's a big question. I'm not really going to go there.
Well, I'm not saying I don't know how to answer it, and I definitely won't tell you that I have the entire, like I have some comprehensive argument to give you. Either I'm not going to sit here and go out of my way, but I will tell you that I feel that there is a lot of coherency behind the answer, and I think that it's often. I have actually a lecture now on my channel where I kind of deal with the problem of evil from a pragmatic and psychological perspective. And recently, the Yaqeen Institute just released a full document from another one of our scholars that you can read if you want to engage with it in a more detailed fashion.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was written by God, I forget his name. Sheikh El Shanawi. Anyway, so that's currently gone up, and it just went up today, so you guys can read it if you want. Anyway, so I deal with it, but my response to a lot of what you said in terms of like how evil is experienced and stuff like this is that I think the world that you are depicting from the Islamic perspective is a lot better than the one that is being depicted from one without God. And I think that you have a lot more to answer in terms of like your own worldview, in terms of how to deal with evil and define evil and even deal with it from an atheistic perspective than you do. And I'm just being frank with
you. It makes you feel better. That's ultimately what it is. It makes you feel better about the world.
That's a very crude way of putting it, because I could say the same thing about morality and human rights. So let's be frank. Let's not try to simplify it to that extent, because there's a lot of things that we construct in order to quote unquote feel good about the world that we live in. But I would never define it that way, because I think that's not right.
Okay, so, I didn't understand that last point about human rights though, with regards to
like as I mentioned to Veedu, like for example, like human rights don't exist. So why do we have them? For some practical reason, right? But I'm not going to sit here and bash it because of that practical reason. You know what I mean? Like that would be what I consider to be unfair to the actual arguments behind the pragmatic reasons as to the existence of those things. You know
okay. So you're saying it's the same thing. Religion is just the way it is.
I'm saying from a naturalistic perspective, that's what it all amounts to. Every human construct, even the whole society you live in, is all a myth. Everything you follow is a myth. Your moral standards, your social constructs, everything is mythological under a naturalistic perspective. There is no scientific backing to it whatsoever.